was going to do this as a B-Movie Monday, but I think it's going to turn into a 2 for Tuesday because I found this director's other film, which was called Tales from the Quadead Zone. This was also a request review. Unfortunately, I don't have the name of the person who requested the review because the screen capture I took of the comment is on my now dead laptop. Which is funny, I had a dream that I turned it on and it worked suddenly. Anyway, let's get into this movie. I actually ended up watching this on Shudder, which is interesting because you would think that this type of movie would have been uploaded to YouTube because it's still a VHS transfer. It starts off with a very long title sequence. For some reason, I remember when I first watched this movie, the title sequence being about 6 minutes long, but on Shudder, it's only 3 minutes long. I don't know whether I'm misremembering this or whether it has been cut down. I tried to look it up and I didn't see any information regarding whether it's been cut down or not. Also, the opening sequence music sounds like a preset on a Casio keyboard. I was very surprised to find out that that was an actual score written by someone. The main character in this movie's name is Helen Black, and she is a very chaste Christian woman who doesn't believe in premarital sex and is very, very strictly religious. One day she happens to go to this curio shop, and that's where she sees the doll, which is actually a ventriloquist dummy, and the shopkeeper refers to it as a puppet, but for all intents and purposes, I will refer to it as a doll. I think a ventriloquist dummy is a type of puppet. I don't know. But I feel like there's marionettes, ventriloquist dummies, and then sock puppets. But then I don't know whether it's still... Okay, I'm getting off on a tangent. Never mind. So anyways, the shopkeeper tells her that this doll has special powers to grant the owner their deepest desire, and that she sold the doll 4 times, and each time the doll has found its way back to the shop. Helen decides to buy the doll anyways. I should say, Helen laughs when she first hears the story, but then she decides to buy the doll. Now, if you are under the age of 14, this is where you can turn this video off because this is not for your eyes. When she brings the doll home, it immediately has an effect on her psyche. She's in the shower and she starts fantasizing about the doll, and then she starts to masturbate in the shower, and then she even has nightmares about the doll attacking her. She also leaves the doll in one place, then finds it in another, and of course that would freak anyone out. Finally, she tries to put the doll back in its box and then lock it in the closet to keep it from bothering her. And then what happens next is the literal reason why my mother started checking the movies that we rented. Because when I would say I was about 12 or 13, I think I was 13 when we rented this movie. I saw the doll with the glowing eyes on the VHS cover, and I thought it was going to be like Child's Play because I really like Child's Play. And before renting this movie, my mother never really checked the movies that we rented because we didn't really rent anything that was too, out of the order. Like, we would rent stuff like Dead Alive or the Howling movies. What else did I see on VHS back in the day? Return of the Living Dead, stuff like that. So it was never anything too controversial until this movie. I didn't know how this movie ended before tonight because the scene that I'm just about to talk about happened, and my mother heard the doll calling Helen a bitch, and that's when she shut off the VCR, and she was just appalled. She was beside herself. Like, how could anyone make a movie with a doll cursing at this woman? And at this time, I didn't even know about what the doll was going to do next to the woman. I don't recall whether that had happened yet. I think the doll cursed at her and said that he was going to, sleep with her. I don't want to curse on the video, but I think the doll said he was going to do that, and then my mother shut off the VCR before we actually saw the doll do that. But yeah, from that day forward, every time we went to the video store, my mother said, I need to see what movies you guys picked out. Let me read the back of the movies. Let me see the rating on the movie that you picked out. So this movie has a special place in my memory for that specific reason. Now, going back to the part of the movie that I did see for the first time tonight. The doll is calling Helen bitch. I'm sorry, why? That shouldn't be funny, but it's hilarious to me. It really shouldn't be funny, but it is. Because the doll is like, hey, bitch, wake up, bitch. I don't know if I could find a clip of that doll saying that. That's the funniest thing I've seen in a movie. So the doll, before he has sex with her, he actually does what DJ Khaled claims to not do. I don't believe him. He says he doesn't do that, but I don't believe him. And then the doll deflowers her, of course. And yes, they show the doll on top of her stroking. That's what we'll call that. And this awakens her desire. I know, it's sick, right? The doll disappears the next day, and she tries to get the same feeling from the hustle man outside. And you know what a hustle man is? A hustle man is, or a hustle woman, is a person who pretty much resells stolen goods. So she tries to get with the hustle man outside. He cannot please her the way the doll pleased her. So she tells him to get the hell out. Then she goes out to a nightclub and she meets this dude with a perm, and she brings him home, and she can't get any satisfaction from him either the way the doll made her feel. So she eventually buys the doll again, and she tries to beg it to do what it did before. And then she says, well, if I can't have you, no one can, implying that she's going to destroy the doll. And then the doll's eyes light up and kill her. In almost like a possessed type of way, which, you know, it is a devil doll from hell. So cut to the next scene, the doll is back at the store, and the shopkeeper is now telling the next person that she has sold the doll 5 times and it is returned back to the store. And the girl still buys the doll, which opens us up for a sequel, which is pretty cool. Now I know they didn't make a sequel, but they did make a remake, which is awful. It's abysmal. It's so bad. I tried to watch the remake, which was done in 2007, and I couldn't make it through 10 minutes. And I can sit through almost anything. So for me to turn it off, it had to be really, really bad. I mean, it was so bad. I actually wrote a short list of movies. As you see, I'm doing this. I'm looking at my notes over there. I wrote a short list of movies that are better than the remake to Black Devil Doll. Troll 2, The Room, Redneck Zombies, Zombievers, Ghost Shark, Mansquito, Frankenfish, Curse the Werewolf. All better movies than the remake to Black Devil Doll, so skip it, unless you're a masochist. Watching this as an adult was kind of funny to me because it's so ridiculously outlandish that it's good in some ways. Well, in my opinion anyways. But this movie's not for everyone. If you're the type of person that you liked Frankenhooker, The Greasy Strangler, Poltergeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, this is right up your alley. If those were too much for you, this movie isn't so much your style, and that's alright. Let's talk about the technical aspects of this movie. This is filmed in VHS, and the copy that I watched is on Shudder is a VHS transfer complete with the tracking lines at the top and the bottom. It looks like the director only used natural lighting and the lighting that's available inside the house and the dance club when there was a scene in the dance club. Between the lighting used and the VHS form of recording, this would have looked like a home video if it wasn't for the direction and the camera work, really. The camera work is what keeps this movie from looking too amateur. I like how the director visually told this story. He deliberately chooses to zoom in at certain things, zoom out during certain moments, to do close-ups. He pans through different areas, and it really shows his talent. And in my opinion, you can definitely tell that this director had more talent than he had money, which is always a good thing. And this stands out to me particularly because I've seen so many newer movies recently where people had more money than talent. Terrifier, I'm looking at you. I mean, someone's got to tell me why the lighting in this 1984 VHS recorded movie was better than lighting in Terrifier. That just irritated my life. And then we won't talk about Open House again. That was all budget, all money, very little talent. Except for the cinematographer. They did a good job. But the writer, Jesus. I think the director was the director. I think it was 2. I think it was a male and a female that were writer-directors. Stop with the writing part and just do the directing part and find someone else to write, because the storytelling is actually very good in this. There's a scene where Helen is on the phone with her friend, and the phone conversation definitely, it comes off very natural, but it serves to introduce you more to Helen's character as well as her friend's character, who they play well off each other because Helen is so very chaste and her friend is a little bit loose in the booty. And while this phone conversation is establishing her character, at the same time we're visually seeing her character too as the camera pans around her home, and you see things like the Bible open, the plastic on her furniture, the carefully grown houseplants. These all kind of show us what type of individual she is, and that type of storytelling is underrated. Like I said at the beginning of this with the title sequence, the soundtrack is awful except for the few times where there was an R&B singing style over it. The singer was very good. That part of the soundtrack was really good, but the parts that were just instrumental, really bad. Especially during the scene where the shopkeeper is first telling Helen about the doll. The soundtrack is a little too loud and it's hard for you to hear the shopkeeper. Plus, the notes that are being hit are so tinny. I can't think of another word because I can't say it's not in key. It's in key, but it's so high-pitched and annoying that it's very difficult for you to hear what the shopkeeper is saying. The effects, as far as the doll looked, I mean, I thought the design of the doll was pretty cool. The facial expressions that the doll made were pretty cool. The only time it was kind of funny was the scenes where, the full body scenes, where you can clearly tell it is a small child instead of the doll, which, you know, would be fine if it was a normal horror movie, but no child should be on set for the type of storyline this movie had. Anyways, I'm gonna watch, what did I just call it, Tales of the Quadead Zone. But before I do that, I did want to go over a little bit of trivia that I found about this movie that I found kind of interesting. One thing, the doll's head fell off during the filming of the scene with the doll having sex with the woman. That particular doll used for the movie was found in a hobby shop in Chicago. And the scenes, like I said, the full body scenes that you could tell was a small child, apparently that was the director's nephew. And the original title for this was called The Puppet. And the title was changed to appease the VHS distributor, who agreed to release the film, but only if the original title was dropped and replaced with Black Devil Doll from Hell. I think that was actually a good decision because The Puppet is not as memorable a name or title as Black Devil Doll from Hell. Almost everyone who worked on this film got paid by the director Chester Novell Turner, but Turner didn't pay himself anything during the making of this movie. The doll's tongue was made out of latex and a coat hanger. Chester Novell Turner wrote the script in 3.5 days. Believable. This is one of my favorite facts. The dummy's cornrow hairstyle was done as a tribute to singer Rick James. The film was entirely financed by Chester Novell Turner, so an independent film. And the curio shop was located in a suburb of Chicago. And all the shots within the curio shop were done in one day. A very interesting little piece. I'm looking forward to watching his other film, which is on YouTube. I'll probably put the link in the description or in the first comment underneath this video. Hey guys, I'm back from watching Tales from the Quadead Zone. Not exactly right this moment. I was too tired to record when I first watched it. So I'm recording this not the same day that I recorded the first part of this video, which was about Black Devil Doll from Hell. But, positive note, I am mic'd up, so hopefully the audio will be a lot better this time around. I'm gonna refer to my notes a lot because it's not super fresh on my memory. So bear with me. The title cards of this movie. The title cards look almost exactly like the title cards that we used to make in audiovisual club in middle school, around 7th and 8th grade. We had audiovisual club, and we just thought we were doing it because we could make title cards and do transitions and work with a green screen and stuff like that. So that's kind of how, no, that's not kind of, that's exactly how this looked. The music still sounds like it is the auto presets that come with the Casio keyboard, even though I'm still shocked. It says that the director also scored the movie, but I feel like Maybe he's not telling the truth. I think he just hit the preset and then gave himself a score credit. Because how do you write music that sounds just like music that comes with the Casio? I don't know. Oh, I forgot there's a rap song over it too. And I'm not going to even attempt to recreate it, but it's a rap song about the Tales from the Quadead Zone. And it's in a really shrill, high-pitched voice it sounds like a puppet rapping, which is odd because there's no puppets in this movie. However, I did find out that originally Black Devil Doll from Hell was supposed to be part of Tales from the Quadead Zone. It was supposed to be one part of an anthology, and instead of it being one section of an anthology, he decided to make it into a full-length feature. Shirley Jones, who was the lead in Black Devil Doll from Hell, is back, and she plays a mother to a recently deceased child, whom she's telling these Tales from the Quadead Zone to. The effects for this is actually kind of cute because you just see like the cushion sink down as if there's a ghost child sitting there, and she takes a book and she's telling him these stories. The ghost son's name is Bobby, and she's going to tell him 3 stories. The first story is called, well, the book is called Tales from the Quadead Zone. Now I want to know what the term Quadead actually means. Did the director make that up? There's got to be, I'm going to have to find a behind the scenes featurette or something. I want to find I actually want to buy these on DVD. I hear that the VHS for Tales from the Quadead Zone is actually very expensive and very rare because there was only a few of them produced, so they can go for up to like $750 for the original VHS of Tales from the Quadead Zone. That's very interesting. Oh, the other thing, I actually want the doll from the Black Devil Doll from Hell. I know that's a weird thing, but there's a couple dolls I want. I want that one. I want the African Zuni doll from Trilogy of Terror. Trilogy of Terror. I want an Annabelle doll, and I want a good guy doll. Not the Chucky doll that always has the cuts in his face and everything from like the 3rd and 4th movie, like the original good guy doll that comes in the box and everything from Child's Play 1 or 2. Like those 2 versions I really like. They're very hard to get a hold of a Chucky doll that looks really good. They have all these different variations of him that are not so good, so same thing with Annabelle, but I would love to have those dolls. What was I talking about? The first story was called Food 4. This was really almost excruciatingly bad. Like the acting was bad, the story was bad. The story is basically, it's not so much a story as just an occurrence. Like it doesn't have a fully finished or fleshed out narrative. It's just a family sitting around a table, and I think there's about 8 of them, and the father blesses the food and says there's 8 of us and there's only enough food for, I think he says 4 the first time. And so they all, when the prayer is done, they jump at the food, and several of them are like, darn, I didn't get any food, can't eat tonight. So then cuts to the next scene. There's 8 of us and there's only food for 5. One son gets sick of this, and so he decides to kill a couple of his siblings so that there's enough food for everyone. And then I guess the final scene is the father says a prayer, and he's like, there's 5 of us and there's only enough food for 3. And I think he kills his parents and his sister, and then it doesn't even show what happens. It just has an epilogue, a written epilogue across the screen that just says he was arrested. And I'm like, you left us in. Well, people did a lot of coke in the 80s. Maybe you was high off your ass and you just thought, yeah, this sounds great. Also, it doesn't make sense because the meal are sandwiches and you can cut sandwiches in half. You could always cut the sandwiches in half and then everyone just eats a little bit less, but there's enough for everyone. But, it'd be too much like right. The second story is called The Brothers. And it's about this guy whose brother passed away, and he pays these other guys to help him sneak into a mortuary and take his brother's body. Only so that he can dress his brother up like clown and then complain about how poorly his brother treated him and how he felt like he was in his brother's shadow for like a good, 15-20 minutes of a soliloquy that this actor did talking to his dead brother who was dressed as a clown. One of the highlights is when they finished kidnapping the body and brought it back to the brother's house, the 2 friends have a toast, and
One of them, I don't know whether it was a brother or one of the friends, had a mug that was shaped like breast, and it reminded me, I have an uncle that had a mug that was shaped like breast. I mentioned in another video about one of my uncles, and in this one I'm mentioning another uncle. Keep in mind I have like, I think 6 uncles. I have 6 uncles. So there's an uncle for everything. The house that it was shot in, I wondered if it was the same house as the house from Black Devil Doll from Hell, because the couch had plastic on it. And I know that could be a common thing during that time period, but it looked like it might have been the exact same couch with the same plastic that was on Black Devil Doll from Hell. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same house. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, that was just an observation. I talked about the soliloquy. Oh, at the end of his soliloquy, he laughs really unconvincingly for about a minute straight. It's weird. Then he goes into the basement to dig a grave for his brother, and of course the brother comes, I wouldn't say comes back to life, maybe he's zombified or undead, however you'd want to term him. He becomes mobile again and goes down to the basement and kills his brother, and then he walks out of the door, and that's it. That's the end of the story. He kills his brother and walks off dressed as a clown. That was really straight garbage trash. Like, I've never in my life seen a director get progressively worse. Usually directors get better. This was actually worse than Black Devil Doll. and that's a hard feat to accomplish, to be actually worse than Black Devil Doll. Okay, so what's the third one? Is called Unseen Vision, which is really the third story, but it's also the wraparound story because it involves the mother from the very beginning that is telling these stories to her deceased son, Bobby. Now, the husband comes home and he's very upset with her for talking to the dead son again, and he's kind of like getting on her case, like he's been dead and you're pretending that he's alive in your mind. And they start fighting, which is kind of the best scene in the movie because the fight is very convincing. Like it's straight up domestic violence upon each other. He actually starts hitting her in the head with the book until they fight across the couch, across the room, into the kitchen, until eventually she stabs him. That was actually some very good stunt work with those 2 actors. Then what supposedly a sheriff and a deputy show up, even though they have no uniforms on. Like you could have went, no, I don't think they had dollar stores in the 80s. They didn't have dollar stores in the 80s, so I don't think you could go and get a fake plastic badge or anything from the dollar store, but geez, they were just in their regular street clothes talking about they're the sheriff and the deputy. Sure, you're right. She asked them to let her use the bathroom, and then she has like this whole flashback sequence of her and her son in the park as she contemplates suicide with a razor blade. And just when this is one of the parts I actually do give the movie credit for. I thought she was going to slit her wrist because, you know, she's contemplating suicide, she has the razor blade. I thought she was going to slit her wrist. No, she slits her throat. I wasn't expecting that. So kudos for giving me something unexpected. Oh, by the way, in the flashback, the little boy that plays Bobby, he looks about the right age, because this movie was made about 4 or 5 years after Black Devil Doll from Hell. The stunt actor that played the doll when it was walking was the director's nephew, who was about 2 years old at the time. And I'm wondering if this is that same nephew that played the doll playing Bobby. I think of all 3 stories, the wraparound story was probably the most interesting, with the mother talking to her deceased son and the father having issues with that. I think that was, out of the 3 stories, that was the best story. Like, they probably could have fleshed it out into a movie. I'm not sure, because maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to find something positive out of this. Let's talk about the tech. The music is still bad, as I said at the beginning. The lighting is better in this movie than in the first movie. But the camera work is not as good as it was in the first movie. I don't know what that's about. I mean, it's the same director, but I guess this time around he wasn't as ambitious, I guess. The acting was good in a blaxploitation type of way. And I would have to say kudos to the dude and the brother segment just for having to memorize and recite that 15-20 minute long soliloquy minus the fake laughter. If he could have got that laughter on point, I would give him more kudos, but it was not to be. But he had a ton of dialogue they had to remember. Like I said, I like the effects of the ghost sitting in a chair, the cushion sinking down. That was kind of a cool effect. There was some trivia. I would actually have to pull up the trivia. I was supposed to have that up on IMDb. Hopefully I'm gonna talk a little bit so I don't have to edit this whole thing, because since I'm working on an old program, I don't like editing so much. Quadead Zone. Here we go. Bear with me, because when I had my laptop working, I was working on the newest editing software, and now that I have to work on this older computer, I'm working on I guess I just only have iMovie 11 from 2011. Finally got the trivia. Okay, so Shirley Jones, who was the star of it, she did the artwork for the original VHS box cover. There actually was a sequel plan for this, but unfortunately it was never made. Or fortunately, it was never made. Shirley Jones also did the drawings that were used in the ending credits. They used a hair dryer to blow Shirley Jones' hair during the ghost segments. Ketchup was used for blood. Yeah, in the sequence Food 4. And as I said earlier, Black Devil Doll from Hell was originally supposed to be part of this anthology. However, after writing the script, Chester Novell Turner realized he had enough material to turn the story into its own film, which was released a few years prior to this film. The original BC Video VHS release is famously rare and a holy grail for collectors, which I also mentioned earlier, that some of these VHS copies of Tales from the Quadead Zone go for $750. According to this, it says some have sold for in excess of $2,000. So if you find a VHS copy of Tales from the Quadead Zone, hold on to that sucker or sell it on eBay. As described in the documentary Adjust Your Tracking. Oh, I have to check out that documentary, because I knew there was more behind the scenes stuff about this to know. Okay, so the documentary is called Adjust Your Tracking, and according to it, Tales from the Quadead Zone was an extremely sought after VHS, which I just finished saying. Why did they have this twice? We just finished saying this. The cult success of the movie got to the point where several public screenings have been held for it, one of which was at a 2016 symposium at Yale University Library. This is what you're paying, what, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year to go to Yale, and they're showing you Tales from the Quadead Zone in the library. oh, the hipsterness of it all. The book that she reads from is actually a Bible with a new cover put on it. The brother segment was shot first, and 2 different locations were used for the funeral home and the segment The Brothers. So that's all the trivia I have for this movie. This is not as good as Black Devil Doll from Hell, in my opinion. But, like I always say, just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it. And just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. Have you seen Tales from the Quadead Zone? Have you seen Black Devil Doll from Hell? What did you think of both of them? Let me know in the comments.